What's up, RotoBallers? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Jorden Hill, and I'm back again to talk about some players that might have been a letdown in Week 11 or have been disappointing you for multiple weeks at this point. Before we get into it, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any content as we inch closer to the fantasy playoffs. Let's kick things off at the running back position with DeOnta Foreman of the Carolina Panthers. Now, I write a weekly column over on RotoBaller.com where I talk about players to trade for and away every Wednesday, and last week, I actually highlighted Foreman as someone to trade away by capitalizing on his big Week 10 performance against the Falcons. So obviously, I was a bit panicked about Foreman coming into the week, and it proved to be for good reason. His two biggest games this year have come against Atlanta's porous run D, and I looked ahead at the schedule to see that he played Baltimore this week, and things won't get any easier for him next week against the Denver Broncos before the team heads into a Week 13 bye. Things will open up for Foreman a bit when the team returns in Week 14, but we really just don't know what this Carolina offense is going to look like going forward. They looked pretty bad this week with Baker Mayfield under center. We don't know if they're going to make a switch to Sam Darnold at some point or back to PJ Walker. Either way, it's just a situation that I really would prefer to avoid. Now, to be clear, you can't drop Foreman, and it's likely past your league's trade deadline, so he's firmly a hold for me for now. I'd prefer not to play him next week, but he could be a viable flex play down the stretch. We'll just have to wait and see. If you roster DeAndre Swift, you've probably been panicking for weeks now, and I can't blame you at all. He's consistently being outtouched by Jamal Williams, and this week he was even outcarried by Justin Jackson. I think it's clear that Swift just isn't 100% healthy right now, and he might not be all season, and Jamal Williams has been really good, so the Lions can just limit Swift's touches and not really be hurt by it. I'm holding on to Swift in redraft leagues because for all we know, the team could choose to unleash him next week, but I'm far too scared to put him anywhere near my starting lineup going forward. He's a must bench for me for now. Now, onto some wide receivers. The first name I want to mention is DEEBO Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers. Full disclosure, this video goes live Monday during the day, and the 49ers won't play until Monday night, so I'm hoping DEEBO has a big bounce back game because he's been really disappointing as of late. I think a common misconception is that DEEBO found most of his success last season due to rushing production. Now, don't get me wrong, it was his work on the ground that made him a true fantasy league winner, but if you take away all of his rushing stats from 2021, he still would have finished as a top 12 fantasy wide receiver in PPR scoring, which is nothing to scoff at. With Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco, and now Eli Mitchell back from injury, both getting a lot of touches, we can't expect DEEBO to be involved on the ground going forward, but the problem has really been the lack of production through the air. He's been especially underwhelming for the past 2 weeks, but I'm not ready to give up on DEEBO just yet. He has a really awesome schedule through the rest of the year, he's a talented player on a great offense, and the target volume has been there for him, it just hasn't really turned into fantasy points. I think that changes over the next couple weeks. I'm going to continue to roll with DEEBO as a wide receiver 2 in my starting lineup every week. Speaking of wide receivers seeing a healthy target share that just aren't scoring fantasy points, let's talk about DeOntae Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming into Week 11, DeOntae was the 9th most targeted receiver in the league, but just scoring as the wide receiver 39 in PPR fantasy formats. His target numbers have kind of tailed off over the past few weeks as rookie George Pickens is quickly stealing the spotlight. Now, Johnson is a talented player, and if you have the room, I don't mind stashing him at the end of your bench in case Pittsburgh figures some things out in the coming weeks, but take it from a Steelers fan, this offense just isn't good enough to trust Johnson in your lineup. If you're in a shallower league and there's someone on waiver wires catching your eye, I think it's okay to drop him. Now for a name I thought I'd never bring up on a Time to Panic video, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. You might think I'm crazy for even mentioning him after one bad game, but he is dealing with a turf toe injury that I do think is important to monitor. Jefferson stated ahead of Week 11 that there would be no limitations due to his injury, but he finished with just 3 receptions for 33 yards. Now, this can be attributed to multiple factors, including the fact that he was being covered by Trayvon Diggs for most of the game, or that Kirk Cousins was facing unrelenting pressure, being sacked 7 times. So generally, this is a performance you just throw away and forget about. But again, the turf toe injury, we've seen these types of injuries become very serious in the past and sideline players for multiple weeks, so all I'm saying is pay close attention to practice reports, injury reports throughout this coming week, make sure he doesn't suffer any setbacks, and if you're a fantasy manager of Jefferson, it might not be a bad idea to pick up KJ Osborne as insurance if you have the extra bench spot. But obviously, as long as Jefferson is active, you're playing him with confidence. That'll do it for this week. Please remember to leave a like if you enjoyed, and comment down below which players are concerning you heading into Week 12. Thanks again for tuning in, and best of luck in your fantasy matchups.